Welcome back to Just One Question. And full disclosure, I'm going to ask my guest two questions, but the first one's easy. This is on the other side of the screen, John J.J. French. He's the founder, guitar player, manager for Twisted Sister. And if you don't know who that is, you haven't been alive in the last generation. And he's the author of the really interesting book, Twisted Business, based on his experience of those tumultuous years, let's say, and the business insights he pulled from that. He is a motivational speaker today, and he does a podcast called The French Connection. And if that isn't enough to make you tired, I don't know what is. JJ, how you doing?
Oh, man. Great, Nick. Thanks. And I'm also a prostate cancer survivor.
Wow.
And I just did a fundraiser for that cause that happened almost 5 years ago. So every day I wake up and I don't have cancer, I'm fine. I'm happy. So I'm good. Thanks.
Fantastic. Glad to hear that. Hang in there and stay healthy. So what are you excited about these days besides being cancer free?
I think COVID created a lot of challenges and interesting scenarios that nobody could have predicted. And I, for one, have been dealing with challenges all my life because I'm in the entertainment business. And, that's a what have you done for me lately business. You can't ever rest on your laurels, because I remember one day when Stay Hungry was a double platinum record, and the guy who was interviewing me said, "Oh, that's great. So when's your next record coming out?" I'm going, can you give me like 5 minutes to appreciate the fact that we went double platinum? This was, 35 years ago. I mean, my God, so, when you're in the entertainment business and you're a survivor in the entertainment business and you're a manager and you have some semblance of reality, you know that it's a matter of reinventing yourself over and over again. I know it's a cliche, but the fact is that Twisted Sister was turned down more times than a bedsheet in a whorehouse, and we've come back more times than Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers. So you're constantly getting beaten, you're constantly coming back, you're constantly getting beaten, so it's never as bad as it is when it's bad, it's never as great as it is when it's great. Can you kind of stabilize your head and make decisions when things are falling apart? COVID was a falling apart moment for many, many people. In our particular case, it enhanced us because we're music and we're creative, and so the music licensing went up exponentially. So we're very fortunate, but no one could have predicted that either. I think when COVID first hit, and by the way, sadly, one of the first victims who died in New York City was one of my high school friends who died in March of 2020. And she simply was feeling sick, lived across the street from a hospital. She had asthma as a
comorbidity.
Comorbidity. And she went into the hospital, which was directly across the street from her house. And 11 days later, she died of COVID. And she was the first. So when that initially happened, everyone's freaking out. Yeah. Everything gets shut down. New York is a ghost town, which looks something out of a zombie apocalypse. I remember telling my wife, I'm going to walk over to Central Park. I stood in the middle of the Great Lawn. There was nobody there. In a city of 8 million people, I didn't see a soul in Central Park. Very scary. We didn't know how that was going to be. So you have to kind of take stock of where you're at and make appropriate changes to do what you have to do. And so, that's what I did. And that's what I've always done with Twisted Sister, which is why the book is basically it's a bizwar, it's a business book and a memoir in which I discuss the twisted method of reinvention. These are tools that I teach in my motivational speaking for people to understand. And by the way, this applies to any business. It's not a music business answer. It's Understood. A business answer that not only applies to business. I've had people tell me it applies to life. You take the 7 letters of Twisted, TWISTED, and I turned it into a teaching method: tenacity, wisdom, inspiration, stability, trust, excellence, and discipline. Those 7 letters. When I am asked what's the most important letter of the 7, if I had to pick one,
right,
I would have to say tenacity is probably it, because without it, nothing else comes. If you don't have the ability to survive through hell, you won't survive through hell.
Yeah.
So without tenacity being part of your gut, and let's face it, Nick, entrepreneurs are very interesting people as a species. My brother's not an entrepreneur. He was a school teacher. He didn't want to be an entrepreneur. He wanted a civil service job, and he wanted to get paid, and he wanted to get a pension, and he did all that. And the world needs that. The world needs all that. The world needs people like us, you know. And why do you become an entrepreneur? I mean, you basically become an entrepreneur for two reasons. One is you want to bring the world something they've never seen before, and you're willing to risk everything in your life to show it to the world. Or you want to improve an existing model that you think needs improving, and you're willing to risk everything that you have in life to get there. Those are the two reasons why you become an entrepreneur. In my case, I created a rock band. Well, there was a million rock bands before Twisted Sister, but I wanted to make an improvement on a particular existing rock band, which was the Dolls at the time, who were terrible, but they look great. And I get a lot of flack on that one, Nick, because there's a lot of rock revisionists who want to talk about how important they were. And I will argue that to the death and say they weren't important. They sucked. They couldn't play. And if they didn't dress up like women, no one would have paid the least bit of attention to them because they were so bad. But they did have a thing. Their image was incredible. Yeah. It was magnetized. It was magnetic. Yeah. And I saw it and wanted to. I said, man, if you could play and you look like that, whoa. And that's why Twisted Sister was created. And what's the end result? Here we are 50 years later. The Dolls have sold probably 100,000 albums. I've sold 35 million. Yeah. Okay, so obviously I didn't make a mistake. Whether you like my band, you don't like my band, you cannot take away my 35 million record sales. You cannot take away my 37 gold and platinum records. You cannot take away the 9,200 shows. You cannot take away headlining in 40 countries. You can hate me all you want. You can't take that away from me, which means that I kind of gambled and made the right changes along the line. Because remember now, we're going to be 50 years old as a band.
That's incredible. Yeah. Yeah. I remember a story experience you were telling me about when we first met, which was you were doing a lot of gigs in former communist countries in Eastern Europe. And it took me a minute to figure out, and you explained why that was the case. But these folks who were now in charge of former Soviet countries had been the rebels back in the day against the Soviet Empire. They were the ones who listed the Twisted Sister. You inspired them. And then when the time came, they could hire you to come in and play a 40,000 seat stadium. What an incredible story. You couldn't make that up. You couldn't make that up.
No. And let's take absurdity even, further. Well, first of all, tragically, because of the Ukrainian war, the Ukrainian freedom fighters are using "We're Not Going to Take It" as their battle cry, which is incredibly awesome for us because the song is probably the #1 protest song in the world as it has developed. But, we did a tour for the USO. Twisted Sister performed in Korea. And all these generals, they wanted Twisted Sister to come to the bases, right? Now, let's put this in perspective. In 1986, they dragged my lead singer down to Washington and accused us of being the worst thing that ever happened to America. The most subversive, disgusting, despicable band. They wrote laws down south in Texas called anti-rock laws to keep us out of cities. These laws said that if you performed sex with animals, dead people, or children on stage, you couldn't play there. Well, I don't know about you, Nick. I don't know any band that does that. Okay,
right. You were the end times, my friend. Yeah, at least what they saw coming.
We were the end times, and of course, nobody canceled us because the promoters would go, "Okay, well, they don't do any of those things, so we're not canceling." So we were harassed and arrested and blah 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 blah. And here we are in 2003. Now we are the guests of the United States government, and we got these 5-star generals fighting over which base we're going to play at. I want them. No, you're a 2-star general. I want them. I'm a 3-star general. And you got to sit there and you got to just, if you live long enough, this is some crazy shit. I mean, I just sat there. And all these generals can't wait to do the photo op with us. They're jumping. Right. I'm with JJ. I'm with D. Steiner. Yeah. Okay.
They're finally relevant to their kids.
Like 40 years ago, like throw them in jail. Now we're a defense mechanism for the United States government.
It comes back to that T. It's tenacity. you have it in spades. So congratulations. So I can't resist one more question. What's your take on the post-pandemic era? Is this going to come back like a new renaissance? What's your take on it? I won't hold you to it. I'm just curious. What's your gut telling you right now?
Well, I think people want to know if rock is dead. First of all, I mean, if you want to talk about the music industry, for example, how that's going to come back or react to it. We used to look at music as being the bellwether for life, and I don't see that to be the case anymore. I think people are too wrapped up in their phones and the Game of Thrones, what is it? The House of Dragons, and other stuff. And music is no longer serving as the soundtrack and the guidepost. So back in the 60s, when you went to Woodstock, and you had 400,000 people in the field and everybody screamed, "We hate the war." You had 400,000 people screaming, "We hate the war." Guarantee these days, if you did that, half the people would say, "We hate the war." Half the people would say they love the war. So we've seen that splinter. And unfortunately, no one speaks in a single voice. And that's unfortunate. I would like to remain positive. I love the United States. I'm concerned about our democracy. As everyone should be. But, again, that's a divisive statement. Someone's going to say, "What's wrong with our democracy, man? We need guys like," I don't even want to mention his name. It's a 5-letter dirty word. I'm not going to mention it, but I'm just saying
that who shall not be named. Yes.
so long as it sits there, it kind of sucks oxygen out of the room, and it kind of prevents you from feeling wholesale great about things. But I'd like to think that our republic survives. We've survived worse. I mean, look, I'm a child of the 60s. I remember when cities were burning in 68. I remember the Jim Crow era. I remember this. I mean, the fact that we have this dystopian concept that women should be jailed for having an abortion, and it's almost like Handmaid's Tale is coming back, is a little scary. So what I tell people, if someone wants to engage me in a debate about this stuff, because I'm very opinionated about it, here's my answer to those people who want to engage me in a debate who represent the other side. I say to them, "Okay, I'll tell you what. You spend a week watching MSNBC and CNN, and I'll spend a week watching Fox, and we'll have a discussion. But the truth is, I watch Fox, I read conservative newspapers and listen to conservative talk show hosts all day long. So I understand what the other side is. And if I had to debate and take the other side, I could, because that's how informed I am." I said, until you're prepared to do that for me, until you know enough of my side, I will not give you the honor of a debate, because you are not smart enough to debate.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because one of the real problems in the current political state, which I've been talking about and writing about for the last X number of years, is that the two sides don't listen to each other. They create straw men, fantasy sort of images of what the other side is, but they don't really understand what's motivating on either side. And as a result, we're just blowing.
We're talking past each other.
Yeah, exactly. So
you
used to be able to have a conversation between the two sides. They weren't as far apart as they are now, but still, you could have a conversation. You could debate some topics on the merits. Taxes, various forms of government. You could debate that, but you can't anymore. It's not a debate. It's just slinging words back and forth. So yeah, it's good for you for listening to or making the effort to get both sides. That's unusual. So,
and when I've challenged people that way, you know what they say to me? They went, "You're right. I don't know your side." And I say, "Okay, so when you know my side, we'll talk." That way I'm not telling him, "You're an idiot. I think you're stupid, and I don't agree." What I'm saying is that until you can make a case for me, like I can make a case for you, my time is too valuable to spend talking past you, which I don't want to. Look, I mean, I love my podcast, which is JJ French Connection. I love my book, which is Twisted Business, and I promote the hell out of that. Twisted Sisters entering its 6th decade next year. We're celebrating
that's amazing
anniversary. We're having anniversary albums coming out on vinyl, because vinyl is back. No one ever thought that was going to happen. Let's talk about turning back the clock.
Yeah, right.
Vinyl is back in a big way. So I'm promoting all these other things, and I have a daughter, and I worry about my grandchildren and their future and all this stuff. But I am bullish, because the day I'm no longer bullish is the day I no longer live. So I am always trying to reinvent.
Yeah, myself. Wonderful. T is for tenacity and Twisted Sisters. So, JJ French, thank you so much. It's great to see you. Great to see you looking strong. Keep that attitude. And I'm really sorry that rock and roll isn't the the force for change that it used to be, but it's still important in a lot of people's lives. So
yeah, maybe my follow-up book will be called Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow. I don't know.
yeah, good luck with that one.
Yeah, good luck.
JJ French, everybody. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Nick.